Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply. Let's make a video just for the folks that want to take a step into leathercraft. We're going to make a simple yet very useful project. You're not going to believe how easy this is. All right, so anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com, or check below. We've got links there. Going to take you straight to the website. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So let's step over to our pattern table and begin a journey full of joy and rewards. If we're new to leathercraft, this is going to look like a complicated pattern. It isn't. Everything is going to fall into place. Well, all we're doing, we're taking a longer piece of leather, we're going to bend it on the bottom, there's our pouch, bend it on the top, there's our flap. And we've got two tabs that we're going to sew together to close the ends. Well, so how do we get here? Let's take a standard pair of sunglasses and let's measure these left to right. So right here, I'm at about 5.5 inches. Let's go 6 inches for our pocket. Give those a little extra room. Top to bottom, about 2.25. So let's go 2.5 for our pocket depth. Now on our tabs, these are easy to figure out. All I'm going to do, let's determine first off how thick or how deep we want our project. In this case, we're going 1 inch. Let's take half of that. Add that to our edge. There's our tab. Well now, if we fold that together, those are going to butt together. We need to overlap these. So let's add 1/8 of an inch for a stitch line. So 1/2 inch plus 1/8, 5/8 of an inch. On these, we're going 3/4. We're going to look at a digital pick here in a minute, but we're going 3/4 because I want these to bow out just a little bit. So easy enough on those. Let's go over to our digital pick. So our total outside dimensions here, 8 inches by 7.5, or about 20 by 19 centimeters. So we've got our 3/4 inch tabs. We're coming out 1/2 of an inch from our center line on our bottom, simply to give us a little extra room to work there, and our pouch width, 6 inches. So thus far, easy enough. Let's step over to our main table. Let's get started. We can make our eyeglass case with just about any leather out there. What I would like is somewhere around a 4 to 5 ounce, maybe a 5 to 6 ounce leather. That's about a 1/16 inch or a little bit more. I want some body to that as well, but it's absolutely your call. Go with what you have. So right here, we're going to use our Pioneer Chrome. Love this leather. It's a matte finish, almost a bit of a buff to it. And this is the russet. It's a gorgeous color. Now, when we mark out our pattern, we can use a pen. That brings up all kinds of problems. We can use a pencil, but all told, this little inexpensive scratch-off is one of the most useful tools in my shop. So let's lay this down on our leather and let's trace out our pattern. Our pattern is traced at our leather, but before we move it, let's go ahead and make a mark for our 2 snap holes. Well, there we go. Easy enough to see, too. Good. So, let's start new blade, sharp blade every time, and our square. Again, another tool we cannot do without in our shop. So let's cut this out. Well, that looks good. We're set to go. Now, let's round the corners on our pouch flap, and it's easy to do. Let's just make a series of small cuts. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay, last step before we jump over to our pattern table or our punch table. This is called a groover. And a groover is going to drop in a line parallel to our edge. Now, typically on veg tan leathers, that's actually going to cut a groove in the leather. Allows our stitch to sit down in that. But right here, we're just going to use this as a guide. So let's simply groove the outside of all 4 tabs. Good. Let's step over to our punch table, drop in the holes for our snaps. We're going to use what's called a Sigma snap. It's a very common snap. We see it everywhere. Super easy to set. We're going to need 2 different size holes for this. So on our flap, our cap is going to sit right there. On this side, The female side, that's a relatively large post there. That's going to come up from behind. So we need a larger hole. Down on the pocket, we're going to have a post and a cap. So we need a much smaller hole. Let's start right here. Now, I'm going to use about the second hole up on my revolving punch. And right here, this is the best punch on the market for the money. This is solid and we can replace the tubes. But again, let's come up to about that second tube. Let's see if I can see my mark. And I can, okay? On this end, let's come up to our largest hole. And even that's going to be a little bit small. The more snug our hardware is, the more durable it's going to be. So let's drop that right in there. Good. Our first step in sewing, a chisel. We're going to use the 1/8 inch flat chisel. It's my all-time favorite. Gives us a good size hole, looks just like a machine stitch. So let's start right here. This is the top of our pouch. I'm going to take my 6 tine, and I'm going to take this outside tine. I'm going to butt that right up against the edge. That way we know on all 4 tabs, all our holes are going to line up perfectly. So let's lay that down and drop that right in our groove line. Easy enough. I can see tines on the bottom. So let's take our finger, drop it just inside the tool, and just work that out. Comes out easily, okay? Let's step over to our 4 tine. I'm going to drop the first tine in the last hole, and there we go, okay? So on this side, this is up. So let's take our chisel. Let's put that single tine on the outside. Good. And now our 4 tine. Let's do the same thing on the other side. And every hole is going to line up nicely. Let's reset here. We're going to set our snap. And let's go to our marble. This is to a leather shop what a campfire is to a campsite. We're going to use this on every project, the center of our shop. So with our Sigma snap, we've got these in all kinds of beautiful finishes. Let's pick a finish that's going to complement our project. So let's start right here on the flap. Now, this is a setter set. This is a great deal too because we can set Sigma snaps, line 20, line 24, and rivets, and we get this anvil with it. So right here, let's take our cap, and I'm going to lay that right into the corresponding inset. Right here, we've got 2 setters. So we've got a post and an indent there. So let's take the post. Let's take our female piece. We're going to come from the inside out. Good. Now let's lay that down in the cap and with the post. Let's give that 2 good shots. That's all we need. Nicely set. On the back side, we don't necessarily need our anvil here. So let's come up from the inside with our post. And that. And then let's see, yeah, there we are. We've got the inset there. Let's drop that on that snap. And we're set. How easy is that? Okay, let's jump over to our pattern table. Let's drop in a stitch line. If you're new to leathercraft or you're just knocking a project together and you're not familiar with hand sewing, it is not nearly as tedious or difficult as it may appear. In fact, we can get a stitch line, looks just like a machine on our kitchen table. Now on our pocket, this is going to be a little bit tough to see. It's not hard to sew, it's just a little bit awkward. So here's what we're going to do. We're doing what's called a saddler stitch. This is a beautiful stitch. It's super strong. If you ever have to take one apart, you have to pop every stitch. But let's start right here. So I've got a needle on both ends of my thread. We're going to talk specifics here in a minute. Well, let's take one needle from my top grain side. If we think about it, we chiseled from this side. So the hole on this side is a little bit funnel shaped. A needle is going to fall right into that. So first hole, one needle. Let's pull that through, equalize out our distance. Good. Now the second hole, I'm going to start again from my top grain, get that needle in there, open it up. I'm going to bring the back needle through that same hole. Let's get it halfway through. Let's make an X. I'm going to move my fingers from the eye to the point. Let's pull that through and give it a little tension. Let's do a couple more stitch holes. How easy is that? And it literally took about 8 seconds to do that, and we've got a beautiful stitch line. Now, one point, the more body a piece of leather has, the prettier the stitch line's going to be. The more supple, we can absolutely sew it, but it's just not going to be as pretty as this is. Okay, so let's jump over to our project. And again, this is going to be a little bit difficult to see, but let's do our best. So let's take one side or the other. Now, on our pocket, I want our front on the outside. So let's come around. Let's drop in a clip right about there. Now, our stitch, once we get this going, that's going to tell us where this is going to line up. But in all honesty, once we get one stitch in this, everything else is easy. So let's see if I can come up with the best way to see this. On our needles, we're going to go with a John James number 18. It's my favorite needle, but it's a good all-around hand sewing needle. And our thread, the Ritza, 0.8 millimeter. All kinds of beautiful colors here. And in fact, we can add some real creativity simply with our stitch. So let's see if we can get this more in our shot. There we go. All right, let's start right here. I'm going to take one needle. I'm going to go through our bottommost hole, and then the same on the back piece. Let's see if we can get our finger in there. Again, not difficult, just a little bit awkward. But at the same time, we're only sewing about 1.5 inches. So let's pull that through, okay? Equalize that out. There we are. Now, second hole. Let's come from our front. And through the second hole on our back piece. Okay. Now, the thread on the back side, let's do our best to come back up through that same hole. And out through the front. Okay. Let's tighten that down. Good, we've got our first stitch. Now everything's lining up. So from here, watch, I bet that goes straight through, and it does. Now on this second stitch, let's pull that through. What I want to do is, if we can see this, and we probably can't, I'll describe it. I'm going to pull our inside thread, I'm going to push it down. That's going to open up that hole. So this thread, or this needle, is going to go right through that hole, but at the same time, it's not going to split my thread. There we go. Okay, let's tighten that down. Good, now we can drop that clip. I'm going to sew the balance of these 4 or 5 holes. And we're down to our last hole. Most hand sewing isn't awkward like this, but again, we're just doing a short distance. So on our last hole, let's come from the front, inside. Let's pull that taut. Now we're simply going to tie a small square knot here. So I'm going to go right over left, circle around, draw that down, and now left over right, circle around, and draw that down. Good, we've got a solid knot there. Now let's take one needle. We're going to come back through above that knot. And one needle, let's come in below that knot. And let's pull that taut as well. Okay, let's flip this around. Now on our blade, we rarely use this part of the blade so it remains sharp. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to cut through the thread. I'm going to lay my knife on the project, and I'm going to pull the thread across the blade. We don't cut into any leather. Okay, well that looks good. Let's flip it around. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And there we are. Very nice. But notice too, because of the way we used our chisel, we butted that extra tine on the outside. We've got a perfect fit on both sides. Let's step over to our punch table. We have a simple yet useful leathercraft project. That's exactly what we were looking for. Well, how about our fit? Just right. Now, if you're new to leathercraft, there are so many possibilities here with leather, with design, with decoration. Take that ball and run with it. If this is your first project in leathercraft, well, I hope you had a great time with it. I certainly have. But I also hope your eyeglass case comes out beautifully. Now, the bigger point to this video, you've taken the first step on a journey with unimaginable rewards. And I hope you love every minute of it. Good luck with your projects.